Yara Flint knew the wedding sky was lying before the first bell rang. Everyone else saw beauty, a perfect blue vault, arched above the Dragon King's wedding terrace, polished as enamel, soft with golden sun, harmless as painted silk. White banners streamed from the dragonbone towers. Noble guests gathered in jeweled rows beneath garlands of silver ash blossom. High above them, ceremonial wyverns circled lazily through warm air that should not have existed over Stormbreak Keep in the month of black rain. Yara saw the seam. It ran behind the sun, a thin bruise in the blue, too straight for weather, too calm for heaven. Behind it, something turned with teeth of fire. She stood at the lowest step of the terrace, where warning readers were permitted to wait but not speak unless summoned. Her cloak was dark, rain-stained, and plain enough that the court could pretend she was part of the stone. Around her left wrist hung 12 storm teeth on a black iron cord. They were not human teeth. People whispered that anyway. They were dragon storm shards, crescent-shaped and bone-white, grown from dead fire currents where lightning had struck ancient dragon graves. Yara used them to read pressure in the sky the way priests read blood in a bowl. The storm teeth did not choose brides. They did not bless crowns. They did not name liars. They bit pressure where heaven had been sealed, and only a trained reader could tell whether their silence meant safety or a mouth forced shut. When danger moved above a kingdom, the teeth clicked against one another before thunder was born. Now, they were silent. That frightened her more than noise would have. Storm Oracle. Merith Orlan stood beside the wedding dais in robes of pale blue glass silk, her silver hair bound beneath a crown of rain pearls. Her painted eyes were lifted toward the flawless sky, as if she had poured it there herself. Perhaps she had. "The omen is clean," Merith called, her voice carrying over the terrace. "The sky blesses King Caedron Varric's union. No storm contests the vow." The nobles exhaled in relief. Yara did not. At the center of the terrace, Dragon King Caedron Varric stood beneath the false sun, black hair loose over a collar of scaled gold. He was tall enough to make the men beside him look unfinished, with a warrior's shoulders and a face too controlled to be called gentle. His eyes held the molten amber of old dragon blood, but no flame moved in them today. That was wrong too. A Dragon King's fire should answer a wedding omen. Caedron's did not. Yara stepped forward. The first guard lowered his spear. "Warning readers, remain below the vow line. The sky is covered," Yara said. The guard's mouth tightened. "Kneel before speaking of the king's sky." "I will kneel after the guests are moved." That brought heads turning. Merith's gaze dropped at once. So did Caedron's. The force of his attention struck Yara harder than the guard's spear would have. Not because it was soft. It was not. It was sharp, suspicious, and cold, with a king's impatience for disorder at the worst possible moment. Merith smiled. Yara Flint. The name moved through the court like a stain. Someone whispered, "Stormmouth." Another voice answered, "The monster reader." Yara kept her eyes on the seam behind the sun. Merith descended one step from the dais. "Your Majesty, this woman was removed from the Eastern Omen schools for frightening novices with grave weather. She reads dead fire where none exists." Yara lifted her wrist. The storm teeth hung pale and still. "Dead fire does exist," she said. "It gathers where dragon storms are buried instead of answered." A murmur passed through the nobles. Caedron's expression did not change, but his hand moved once near his chest, as if something beneath the gold collar had tightened. Merith saw it. Yara saw Merith see it. The oracle's smile hardened. "And now she brings corpse superstition to a royal wedding." Yara looked at the rows of guests, rival lords, visiting dragon houses, children of border alliances, old women with jewel-heavy throats, young soldiers too proud to look afraid. They were all standing beneath the smooth blue lie. "Evacuate the terrace," Yara said. The court went silent. Caedron's voice cut through it. "On whose authority?" Yara met his eyes. "On the authority of the sky," trying not to scream. The words should have doomed her. Maybe they did. Mirith lifted her hand, and 2 storm acolytes moved toward Yara. "Your Majesty, if she is allowed to pollute the omen, every rival house will claim your wedding begins under panic. Let me cleanse the disturbance." Caedron looked from Mirith to Yara's wrist. "What are those teeth reading?" he asked. Yara swallowed. "Nothing." A noble laughed. Yara did not look away from the king. "That is why you should be afraid." For the first time, Caedron stepped down from the dais. The terrace seemed to lower itself around him. Even the wyverns above drifted farther from the towers. He stopped before Yara, close enough that she could smell iron, smoke, and a strange absence where royal flame should have warmed the air. "Explain," he said. Mirith's voice sharpened. "She cannot. Her tools answer rot and fear, not royal weather." Yara lifted the storm teeth between them. When a storm is natural, they click. When lightning is near, they hum. When dragon fire rises, they burn. But when the sky is hidden by false omen work, they go silent because the danger has been sealed behind a clean face. Caedron's gaze moved to the perfect blue overhead. A flicker crossed his jaw. Doubt, not belief. Not yet, but doubt was enough to make Mirith dangerous. "Your Majesty," the oracle said, "if you honor this warning, you dishonor the omen before every house gathered here." Caedron did not answer quickly. Yara hated that she noticed the conflict in him. Hated that some part of her had wanted the Dragon King to be better than the court that flinched from her tools. Then his face closed. "Muzzle them," he said. The words struck more cleanly than a blow. For one breath, Yara heard nothing. Not the nobles, not the banners, not the false wind. Only the small, cold clatter of the storm teeth against her wrist as the acolytes seized her. She did not fight. Not because she accepted it, because fighting would make them call her monster before the teeth had one last chance to prove she was not. Mirith took the iron cord herself. A clean sky requires clean silence. She laid the 12 storm teeth on the wedding stone. One by one, the acolytes clamped silver omen rings around them. Click, click, click. Each ring closed over a crescent shard, like a muzzle over a living jaw. Each sound cut through Yara's ribs. The court watched the monstrous girl lose the only tools that had ever believed her. The final silver ring snapped shut. The false blue sky shuddered. Mirith went still. Yara lifted her bleeding wrist and whispered, "Now they know what to bite." The muzzled storm teeth rose from the stone. Not falling, not dying, rising. 12 silver-ringed crescents spun upward through the golden air, glowing white at the edges, then black, then storm blue. The omen rings cracked open one by one, not because the teeth were breaking, but because the sealed sky had answered their hunger. Above the wedding terrace, the perfect sky screamed without sound. The teeth struck the seam behind the sun and bit it open. Behind the torn blue, black rain waited in the shape of a dragon's mouth. Caedron looked from the wound in the sky to Mirith's pale face. His voice did not soften. "Who sealed the storm before first bell?" Mirith Orlane answered before Yara could. "A protective veil," the storm oracle said, and her voice was steady enough that several terrified nobles tried to borrow courage from it. "Not a false omen. A weather veil placed for the safety of the wedding guests." Above the terrace, the beautiful blue sky hung torn open behind the false sun. Through the wound, black rain waited without falling. It gathered in a vast curve, shaped like the open mouth of a dragon, its edges veined with storm fire. The 12 storm teeth circled beneath it, Silver omen rings cracked around their crescent bodies, glowing storm blue where the muzzles had failed. No thunder sounded. That made the silence worse. Dragon King Caedron Varric stood below the wound in his wedding sky, one hand still near the gold-scaled collar at his throat. He had not looked at Yara since asking the question. His gaze was fixed on Merith. "Who sealed the storm before first bell?" he asked again. No apology lived in the words. Yara had not expected one. Men like Caedron did not become kings by feeling shame quickly. They became kings by deciding whether shame could be made useful before anyone saw it cut. Merith bowed her head. "Your Majesty, the veil was sealed under oracle authority after dawn pressure readings. The storm above the terrace was unstable. I contained it before it could disturb the union rite." Yara laughed once. It hurt her bleeding wrist. Caedron's eyes moved to her at last. "You disagree. I read what I can prove," she said. "Not what I wish to sound clean." Merith's pale eyes sharpened. "Careful, Stormmouth." Yara looked at the cracked silver rings scattered across the wedding stone. "You already muzzled my tools in front of every house here. Do not pretend my name still needs lowering." The court shifted. A few guests glanced toward the stairs, finally understanding that Yara had told them to move before the sky opened. They had not moved. Pride had kept them under the blue lie. Caedron looked up at the torn seam. If the veil was protective, why did the teeth attack it? Merith spread her hands. "Because her tools are corrupted by grave weather. They do not understand royal safety. The storm teeth do not understand anything," Yara said. "They answer pressure." Caedron's jaw tightened. "Then read it." Yara held out her left wrist. Blood ran from where the iron cord had been torn away. She did not wipe it. The court could look at what obedience to a clean omen had cost her. "My teeth were silent before the rings," she said. That silence was the first warning. Merith stepped forward. "Silence means no storm." "No," Yara said. "Silence means no open pressure. When the sky is naturally clear, the teeth rest loose. When danger is near, they click. When dragonfire rises, they burn. But when pressure is sealed behind omen work, they go dead because their mouth has nothing to bite." She looked at the broken rings. Protection does not make warning teeth go silent. A muzzle does. The words crossed the terrace, harder than thunder. Caedron looked down at the closest silver ring. Its inner edge was not smooth. Tiny black scorch marks crawled along the metal, shaped like clawed letters, too small for most eyes. Yara saw them. Merith saw Yara see them. "Bring the ring," Caedron ordered. One guard hesitated before picking it up, as though the cracked omen band might bite too. He carried it to the king on a folded strip of ceremonial cloth. Caedron held it near his face. "What am I looking at?" "Not the sky yet," Yara said. "The tool used to silence the warning," Merith said. "Omen rings are standard containment instruments for teeth that chatter during blessing rites," Yara replied. "Not for a sealed storm." Caedron turned the ring slowly between his fingers. "There are markings." "There should be 3, Yara said. "Pressure, direction, release. If it was protective, the release mark would face outward, toward the guests, to guide evacuation if the veil strained. And if it was not," Yara stepped closer. The guards watched her, but Caedron did not tell them to stop her. She took the ring from the cloth without touching his hand. The distance was small, deliberate. She would not let the court mistake proof for intimacy. She tilted the silver band toward the false sun's torn edge. The black scorch marks brightened. "Direction is reversed," she said. "The release mark faces inward." Merith's voice turned cold. "A damaged ring misreads under exposed stormfire." "No," Yara said. "A damaged ring confesses where it was pointed." Caedron looked back to Merith. Was the release turned inward? The veil had to hold until the vow was completed. A stir passed through the guests. That was the first crack in Merith's language. Not confession, not yet, but a shift from safety to timing. Yara pressed harder. Until the vow, or until the houses remained beneath it long enough to be trapped? Merith's face remained composed. You are speaking beyond your station. My station saw the seam before your oracle dais did. The storm teeth circled lower, their cracked rings shedding sparks like falling blue insects. One tooth drifted near the false sun's edge, then snapped its crescent jaw against empty air. A ripple moved across the blue illusion, revealing another straight line beneath the gold. Yara did not look pleased. She looked worried. There are 2 seals, she said. Caedron's head turned sharply. 2? The first hid the storm. The second held the false sun in place. Merith spoke quickly. Layered weather veils are necessary when royal guests gather under unstable skies. Yara turned to the wedding terrace. Then why was no evacuation path opened? Why were the lower stairs chained? Why were the wyverns ordered to circle instead of land? Nobles began looking toward the terrace exits. The lower stairs were indeed barred with ceremonial gold chain. Caedron saw them. For the first time, flame moved in his eyes. Not warmth. Anger. Open the stairs, he ordered. Guards rushed to obey. Merith's voice sharpened. Your Majesty, if the guests scatter, rival courts will call this wedding cursed. Yara looked up at the black rain shaped like a dragon's mouth. If they stay, she said, they may not live long enough to gossip. The first gold chain fell from the stair rail. At once, the storm teeth snapped toward the sound, not attacking, answering release. The false sun flickered. Behind it, a hidden pressure mark burned into view, high above the dais, older than the veil, and written in storm fire along the torn blue skin of the sky. Yara read it before anyone else could. Her stomach went cold. Caedron heard the breath leave her. What does it say? Yara looked from the mark to Merith Orlane. It says the storm was not sealed after dawn readings. The storm teeth spun faster. The black rain above them curved lower, the dragon mouth widening over the wedding terrace. Yara forced herself to read the full mark aloud. Wedding storm sealed before first bell. The lower stairs opened with a scream of gold chain. Guests surged toward them too quickly, silk sleeves tangling with sword belts, jeweled women clutching children who had been told an hour ago that the wedding sky was blessed. The dragonbone terrace, built for ceremony and conquest, suddenly looked too narrow for fear. Above them, the black rain did not fall. It waited. That was not mercy. Yara Flint knew waiting weather was often worse than falling weather. A storm that dropped its anger could be measured. A storm that held itself back was being held by something else. The storm teeth circled beneath the torn false sky, 12 crescent shards flashing white, black, and storm blue. Their silver omen rings cracked wider with each pass, but they did not strike again. They had bitten one seam open. They were waiting for Yara to read the next. Dragon King Caedron Varric stood between the panicking nobles and the wedding dais, his black cloak snapping in wind that did not touch anyone else. His face remained carved from control, but the fire in his eyes had become visible now, molten under the amber. Clear the west stair first, he ordered. Children, elders, then envoys. No one returns to the upper terrace. Guards moved at once. Merith Orlane stepped toward him. Your Majesty, scattering the houses will create more danger than the storm. Let the veil hold while I recenter the omen. Yara turned sharply. Do not touch the sky again. The oracle's eyes cut to her. You forget yourself. No, Yara said. I remember what your clean sky hid. Caedron looked at Yara without softness. Can the veil still hold? For a little while. How long? Yara watched the false sun's edge ripple like gold cloth stretched over a wound. Not long enough for pride. Merith's mouth tightened. A storm reader with muzzled tools should not guess at royal weather. Yara lifted her bleeding wrist. I am not guessing. One of the storm teeth dipped toward her, hovering near her palm. The cracked omen ring around it pulsed faintly, silver darkened by black scorch marks. It did not speak. It did not show her visions. It only carried pressure where it had been forced silent. Yara held her hand beneath it, not touching. The ring is still warm on the inward mark, she said. That means it was not clamped after I warned you. It was prepared before the terrace opened. Caedron's gaze moved to Merith. Prepared? Merith answered evenly. All oracle instruments are prepared before royal rites. That is not unusual. This was not an instrument, Yara said. It was a gag waiting for a mouth. A few nobles heard her and looked back, fear sharpening into attention. That was the trouble with public proof. Once the first lie was opened, even cowards began searching the walls. Caedron stepped closer to the cracked ring. Read the rest. Yara did not like how quickly he had begun using that word. Read. As if he had not ordered the teeth muzzled. As if the court had not watched her tools pinned like dangerous animals because her warning embarrassed his wedding sky. She kept her voice cold. Do not mistake necessity for forgiveness. Something moved across his face. Not apology. Pain, perhaps, but still locked behind a king's discipline. I did not ask forgiveness, he said. I asked what keeps my guests alive. That was the only answer she could respect for now. Yara looked up. The false sun burned too steadily. Real sun shimmered when storm pressure rose behind it. This one held a smooth edge, perfect and wrong. At its lower rim, where the storm teeth had torn the first seam, a second line of pressure glowed faintly. Not sky pressure, ground pressure. Yara's stomach tightened. The veil is anchored below. Merith's face remained still, but one pearl in her rain crown cracked. Caedron heard it. So did Yara. Below where? He asked. Yara turned slowly, tracing the pressure line from the false sun down through the air. It passed the wedding dais, the vow arch, the bride altar, then sank toward the gold chains that had sealed the lower stairs. The exits. Merith moved fast. Weather veils must be anchored. A storm cannot be held in open air. Not to exits, Yara said. Not unless the exits are part of the seal. Caedron's voice lowered. Explain. If the storm strained too early, the lower stairs would hold the veil shut. Every chain stair became a brace. Every guest standing inside the vow line became weight. A horrified sound passed through the terrace. Caedron's eyes turned fully gold. Are you saying the guests were used to hold the sky closed? Yara looked at the rows of nobles, some halfway down the west stair, some frozen beside the silver garlands, all of them suddenly aware of their own bodies as pieces of someone else's ritual. I am saying the veil was not built to release them first. Merith's voice rang out, cold and clear. Enough. The storm above this terrace could have killed them before the vows began. I contained it. I chained the stairs because frightened guests break formation, and broken formation tears a veil apart. Yara stared at her. Formation? Merith did not answer. Caedron did. Wedding seating. Yara looked back at the terrace. The nobles had been arranged in crescent rows beneath the false sky. Dragon houses to the east. Rival nobles to the south. Border envoys near the vow arch. Children of treaty families placed under the blue center, directly beneath the false sun. Not seating. Pressure geometry. Yara reached for the nearest cracked omen ring and held it toward the terrace floor. The scorch marks inside the ring brightened, responding not to the sky but to the pattern below. There, she said. Caedron followed her gaze. The floor? The wedding mosaic. Beneath the scattered petals and spilled wine, the dragonbone tiles formed a great circle around the vow dais. Yara had thought it decorative when she arrived. A sunburst, blue and gold, with old dragon script hidden in the border. Now, the script was waking. The storm teeth began to click, softly at first, then faster. The sound rolled over Yara's skin like rain beginning under bone. Merith looked toward the acolytes. Cover the mosaic. No one moved. Caedron's voice was quiet. Do not. Yara knelt before the nearest line of dragon script. A guard reached as if to stop her, then remembered who had seen the seam first. She pressed her bloody wrist over the blue-gold tile. The storm teeth snapped downward, forming a circle above her hand. Their cracked rings shed silver dust, and the hidden script rose through the polished wedding floor, not translated by magic, revealed by pressure. Yara read slowly. Vow. Line seal engaged before guest entry. Caedron bent still. Merith said, A vow line seal protects royal speech from storm interference. Yara kept reading. Guest formation accepted as stabilizing weight. A child began crying near the west stair. Caedron's gaze did not leave the floor. Continue. Yara swallowed. The next line was harder to read because the gold had been polished over it until only pressure remembered the cut. Evacuation release delayed until vow completion. The terrace seemed to drop beneath them. Caedron turned toward Merith. Still no apology. Still no softness. Only the dangerous stillness of a dragon king, realizing someone had placed living bodies under his ceremony and called it safety. Merith lifted her chin. Had the guests broken formation before the vow, the storm would have torn through them. Yara stood slowly. Then you should have cancelled the vow. That would have shattered the kingdom's alliance. Better an alliance shattered than children used as storm weights. The black rain above the terrace curved lower, its dragon mouth shape widening behind the torn blue. The storm teeth climbed again, circling the false sun. The wedding mosaic burned beneath Yara's feet with the line Caedron could no longer pretend not to see. Guests placed inside vow line seal before evacuation release. The guests inside the vow line stopped moving, not because they were safe, because everyone had finally understood that safety was the name Merith Orlan had given to a cage. Guests placed inside vow line seal before evacuation release. The words burned across the wedding mosaic beneath Yara Flint's feet. Blue gold tiles glowed around them in a circle too perfect to be decoration. The vow dais, the bride arch, the guest rows, the lower stair chains, each piece now looked less like ceremony and more like a lock whose shape had been disguised as beauty. Dragon King Caedron Varric stood at the center of it. That was the worst part. The seal had been built around him. Above, black rain waited in the shape of a dragon's mouth. The torn false sky trembled, but still did not fall. The storm teeth circled high beneath the wound. Silver omen rings cracked and shedding bright dust as they clicked against one another in a rhythm Yara did not like. Not warning now. Counting. Merith lifted both hands. Your Majesty, if the terrace remains calm, I can stabilize the veil long enough to complete evacuation. Yara turned on her. You already delayed release until vow completion, to prevent stampede, to keep the seal fed. The oracle's pale face sharpened. You speak as if weather can be governed by kindness. Storms obey structure. And truth, Yara said. When structure lies, storms bite through it. Caedron looked from the burning floor to the chained stairs, where guards were still forcing gold links open under the pressure of panicked nobles. How do we break the vow line? Merith answered quickly. By completing the vow. Yara almost laughed. Caedron's gaze cut to Merith. That is not an answer I accept. It is the safest answer remaining. No, Yara said. It is the answer that keeps your design intact. The storm teeth suddenly dropped. All 12 of them. They did not attack the oracle. They did not bite the king. They descended in a spiral around the vow dais and hovered at the height of Caedron's chest, their cracked rings turning toward the scaled gold collar at his throat. Caedron went very still. Yara's eyes narrowed. "There," she said. Mirith's voice hardened. "Do not touch royal regalia." Yara did not touch it. She only looked. The collar was ceremonial. Dragon gold, black firestone. 3 ancient claws curved around the throat like an oath. Every Dragon King wore a version of it at wedding rites, a visible sign that royal fire stood ready to witness the vow. But today, no royal fire had answered. Yara had noticed that before she stepped forward. Now, the storm teeth were noticing why. Caedron's hand lifted to the collar. "What are they reading?" Yara stayed cold. "The place your fire should have been." A dangerous silence spread through the terrace. Mirith said, "His Majesty's flame is restrained for formal vow purity." Yara looked at her. "A Dragon King's fire is never restrained by purity, only by injury, theft, or seal work." Caedron's eyes flared gold. "Not at Yara. At the word theft. Read it," he said. Yara looked at him. "You keep saying that after ordering my tools muzzled." His jaw tightened. "And you keep reminding me. I intend to." For 1 second, the storm above them seemed less dangerous than the look between them. Then a child cried near the west stair, and the moment broke into duty. Yara lifted one hand beneath the circling teeth. "If your collar witnessed the veil, the teeth will pull toward the seal mark." Mirith stepped forward. "This is sacrilege." Caedron did not look at her. "Stand back." The command was quiet. The acolytes obeyed before the oracle did. One storm tooth drifted closer to Caedron's collar. Its silver ring, already cracked, shivered against the crescent shard. Yara watched the pressure line form. From the false sun, down through the vow arch, into the mosaic, then up into the gold at his throat. A complete circle. A king used as a latch. Yara's stomach turned cold. "Your flame is in the veil," she said. Caedron's face did not change, but the air around him heated sharply enough that the nearest ash blossoms curled brown. "I gave no fire," he said. Mirith folded her hands. "Royal regalia carries standing witness. The collar may be invoked during emergency weather protection." "By whom?" Caedron asked. "By Oracle Office. Under storm threat." Yara looked at the black rain. There was no declared storm threat before first bell. Mirith's eyes flashed. Because panic would have broken the alliance ceremony. Then the emergency was political. The words landed hard. Caedron took 1 step toward the oracle. "Did you invoke my regalia before I saw the sky?" Mirith did not confess. She bowed. "It was worse. Your Majesty, I invoked what the law allows when royal safety is at stake." Yara shook her head. "Royal safety would release the guests first." Mirith looked at her with sudden hatred. "You know nothing of royal survival. I know what a sealed sky feels like, when someone puts a mouth over the warning." The storm teeth clicked faster. The cracked rings around them began spinning, each silver band turning inward and outward, as if searching for the direction it had been forced to face. One by one, the inner scorch marks brightened. Yara read the order aloud. "Pressure sealed. Guest weight accepted. Vow. Line held. Royal fire entered as witness." Caedron's expression went colder with each phrase. "Entered when?" he asked. Yara hesitated. That was enough for Mirith to speak. "Storm time is not clock time. Weather records distort under pressure." Yara ignored her and knelt at the edge of the mosaic. The tile beneath Caedron's shadow had not yet revealed itself. It would not answer bone salt. Bone salt belonged to death records and earth witness. This needed heat. She looked up at him. Your fire. Caedron's eyes narrowed. You just said it was stolen. I said it was entered. If any true flame remains in you, the false mark will flinch from it. Merith's voice turned sharp. Your Majesty, do not bleed fire into a damaged veil. Yara did not look away from him. She is afraid of what your own flame will refuse. Caedron held her gaze for one breath. Then he removed one black glove. His hand was broad, scarred, and ringed in old burn marks that no royal healer had fully erased. He pressed 2 fingers to the dragon gold collar at his throat. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a thin line of dark red flame moved beneath the gold, not bright, not triumphant, sickly, strained, as though it had been pulled too far and fed too little. The storm teeth snapped toward it. The wedding mosaic screamed. A ring of false blue light rose from the floor around Caedron, then cracked open like glass under pressure. Beneath it, black storm script burned through the gold tiles in a harsh, formal hand. Yara read it before Merith could cover the mark. Royal fire seal entered before first bell. Caedron's mouth went parlor. Yara continued, because stopping would be mercy, and mercy would kill people tonight. Seal witness accepted without spoken king's command. The terrace went silent. Even the storm seemed to listen. Caedron turned to Merith Orlane. His voice did not soften. Who used my fire before first bell? Above them, the storm teeth bit once at empty air, and the final line burned across the wedding floor. King's fire entered as seal witness before the king spoke. A Renek child slipped on spilled wine, while the sky above him opened its black mouth wider. His mother caught him by the sleeve before he fell across the glowing vow line, but the movement dragged her family crest into the light. The embroidered dragon on her blue sash flared once, black at the edges, as if the storm had smelled a name. Yara Flint saw it. Take that sash off him. The woman stared at her. Yara pointed at the child. Now, the mother obeyed, because fear had finally become wiser than pride. She ripped the sash from the boy's shoulder and threw it onto the wedding stone. Above them, the black rain shifted. Not much. Enough. Dragon King Caedron Varric saw the same movement. One hand remained at his throat, where his dragon gold collar had burned with the stolen fire seal. The other lifted in command. All house crests off, he ordered. Banners down, rings, sashes, pins, anything carrying a rival mark leaves the body. More nobles recoiled. One lord shouted, "Those are treaty honors." Yara did not look at him. "They are handles." The storm teeth circled lower. Silver omen rings cracked around their crescent shapes, their edges bright with storm blue hunger. They did not explain. They did not choose. They only snapped toward every crest that answered the pressure wrong. A Vare envoy tore off his ceremonial chain. An Ostholm guard cut the badge from his own cloak. Children began crying as mothers stripped ribbons from their hair. The wedding terrace changed in moments from a royal ceremony into a field of discarded names. Merith. Orlane moved down from the dais, her glass silk robes whispering over the mosaic. "Your Majesty, this is panic, disguised as command." Caedron did not look at her. "My guests were placed inside a vow line seal before evacuation release. My fire was entered as witness before I spoke. You are past the point where I accept your definition of panic." His voice was cold. Yara approved of that more than softness. Softness would have tried to make itself noble while people still stood beneath a storm shaped like a dragon's throat. The first rival families reached the East Passage, but the archway flashed blue and threw them back. A Renek guard struck the floor hard enough to crack his tooth. The old woman behind him screamed. Merith lifted her chin. "Royal passages reject." Unranked evacuation during active vow seal. That is why formation must remain intact. Formation, Yara said. The word tasted ugly. She turned to the wedding floor. Beneath petals, wine, and trampled garlands, the blue-gold mosaic had begun to show its true pattern. Not a sunburst, not wedding art, a pressure map. Each noble house had been seated inside a different curve of the seal. Rennek, under the Falza sun. Ver, under the bride arch. Ostholm along the southern vow edge. All rivals, all beneath the thickest pressure. Yara looked at Caedron. Move your own blood last. A dozen Morn voices rose in outrage. Caedron silenced them with one glance. Yara's eyes stayed on him. If Morn blood leaves first, the seal tightens around the rival rose. That was the design, Merith said. You invent intent from frightened weather. No, Yara answered. Weather has no reason to respect seating charts. Caedron's jaw tightened. Who leaves first? Rennek children. Veir elders. Ostholm wounded. No banners. No crests. No one crosses beneath the bride arch. The east passage still glowed shut. Yara lifted one cracked omen ring from the wedding stone and held it toward the barrier. The silver band sparked, then twisted in her palm until its inner scorch mark faced the old dragon script above the arch. She read fast. Royal blood by crown order. Allied houses by vow permission. Enemy houses by storm command. Mirith's expression sharpened. That clause belongs to battlefield evacuation law. Yara looked up at the black rain. This is a battlefield. Someone dressed it as a wedding. Caedron stepped closer to the barrier. Storm command belongs to the Oracle? When the Oracle did not lay the trap, Yara said. His gaze turned to her. The whole terrace seemed to hold its breath. Yara did not lower her eyes. You do not have to like me. You do not have to trust me. But if you want them alive, you will let the danger, reader, command the storm exit. Merith laughed softly. A monster reader asking for royal authority. Yara's voice stayed flat. No. A woman you muzzled telling you where the door is. Caedron looked once toward the rival families pressed against the sealed passage. Then he spoke for the court to hear. Yara Flint holds emergency danger, reader command, over the wedding evacuation. Merith went still. Yara did not thank him. Gratitude would have been too cheap for a command that should never have been needed. She raised her bleeding wrist. Rennek children first. No crests. Keep low. Move when the teeth turn. The storm teeth dropped behind her in a crescent formation, each silver-ringed shard facing the blue barrier. Now, Yara said. The teeth snapped at the pressure. Not the stone. The passage opened. Children ran. The black rain twisted above them, searching for the names it had been promised, and finding bare cloth, torn collars, empty shoulders. Caedron watched the first rival child cross alive. Something in his face changed, but he did not speak of it. Good. There would be time later for guilt, if they survived what his clean wedding had hidden. Merith's hand disappeared into her sleeve. Yara saw it too late. The Oracle touched the bride arch with 2 fingers. A line of blue fire shot through the mosaic, racing beneath the discarded crests, waking every housemark that had been thrown to the stone. The storm mouth lowered at once, no longer confused by bare shoulders. It had found the names on the floor. Yara's blood chilled. Lift the children, she shouted. Do not let them step on the crests. Caedron seized the nearest fallen banner and threw it away from the passage. Guards followed, kicking sashes, chains, and badges clear, while rival families fled over bare stone. The storm teeth rose suddenly and bit into the air above the bride arch. The false sun flickered. Black script burned through the gold curve of the arch. Not on the sky this time, but across the ceremonial names woven into the wedding structure itself. Yara, read it once. Then again, because the first reading was too cruel. Caedron heard the silence in her throat. Say it. Yara looked from Merith to the trapped names burning under the arch. Rival bloodlines were not only used as weight, she said. They were marked as payment. The final line opened in stormfire across the bride arch. Rival houses marked as storm offering before wedding vow. A Vare grandmother dropped her silver house chain before she reached the passage. The storm found it instantly. Black rain bent toward the fallen metal in a thin, hungry thread, not falling everywhere, not falling blindly. It reached for the engraved name at the chain's clasp. Yara Flint kicked the chain away before the rain touched it. The black thread struck bare stone and vanished with a hiss. Nothing named stays on the floor, she shouted. No chains, no crests, no tablets, no cups with house marks. Clear them all. The guards moved faster this time. Fear had made them obedient, where rank had failed. Caedron Varric tore a gold seating tablet from the base of the bride arch and threw it beyond the vow line. Strip the terrace. More nobles stared at him, as if he had just ordered his own wedding dismantled. He looked back with flame burning low in his eyes. Did I stutter? They moved. Banners came down. Silver cups were overturned. Embroidered chair ribbons were ripped from carved dragonwood backs. A wedding terrace built to flatter alliances became a battlefield of torn silk, broken seals, and nameless bodies fleeing under stormlight. Yara kept her wrist raised. The storm teeth wheeled above her, striking at pressure threads whenever the black rain tried to hook itself to a name. They bit no flesh. They tore no throat. They only cut the invisible hunger between storm and offering. That was why Merith feared them. They did not obey beauty. They obeyed what pressure revealed. Near the East Passage, the last Ostholm wounded crossed alive. A Morn soldier followed too soon, and the barrier flashed blue against his chest. Yara snapped. Morn waits. The soldier looked ready to protest, until Caedron's voice came behind him. You heard her. The soldier stepped back. Yara did not thank Caedron. He had given her command because the sky forced him to, not because his court had suddenly remembered she was human. The black rain shifted again, this time not toward a crest, toward the table beneath the bride dais. Yara turned. A long white ledger lay there, untouched amid the ruin. Its cover was pearl-scaled, its clasp shaped like a sun. Too beautiful, too clean, too still. Merith saw Yara notice it. For the first time, the oracle moved without grace. She crossed toward the dais. Caedron caught her path. What is in that ledger? The seating order, Merith said. A royal wedding requires witness names. Yara walked toward the table. Witness names or offering names? Merith's voice sharpened. Do not touch oracle records. Yara looked at Caedron. Order her away from it. Merith turned on him. Your Majesty, if that ledger is disturbed, the vow line loses structure. Caedron's face hardened. It has already lost my trust. He stepped aside. Not for Merith, for Yara. The gesture drew a murmur from the remaining court, but Yara kept her attention on the ledger. She opened it with her right hand because her left wrist still bled. Inside, the pages were arranged by house, not by arrival, not by rank, by pressure placement. Renak names under the false sun, Vare names beneath the bride arch, Ostholm names along the southern curve. Beside each name was a small blue mark, shaped like a closed mouth. Yara's stomach tightened. Merith said quickly, Those are weather balance marks. Yara ran one finger near the mark without touching it. The nearest storm tooth dipped and snapped at the air above the page. The mark blackened. Balance marks do not flinch from teeth. Caedron leaned over the ledger. What are they? Muzzle signs, Yara said. Not for my tools, for the names. One remaining Renak envoy heard her and went pale. What does that mean? Yara looked at the rows of names. It means the storm was taught not to hear them leave. Silence struck the terrace, harder than thunder. Caedron's jaw tightened. Explain. If a crest is removed, the visible mark is gone. If a person crosses the passage, the body is gone. But if the oracle ledger keeps the names sealed inside the vow line, the dead fire still thinks the offering remains. A woman near the passage began to sob. Then, our children are still marked? Yara looked at the black rain pressing toward the ledger. Yes, Merith lifted her chin. The ledger preserves legal witness. Without it, rival houses could deny attendance, deny alliance, deny debt. Yara closed her bloody hand around the page edge. A guest list that feeds a storm is not witness. It is bait. Caedron looked at the remaining guards. Remove every guest beyond the East Passage. Now. No one waits for formal dismissal. Then he turned back to Yara. Can the ledger be cut? Not with steel. With fire? Not crown fire. It is already in the seal. His eyes narrowed. Then what? Yara looked up at the storm teeth. The answer was cruel, but simple. They have to bite the names free. Mirith stepped forward. If those names are released incorrectly, the dead fire will scatter through every house line represented here. Then I will not release them incorrectly. You are very certain for a woman whose teeth were muzzled minutes ago. Yara turned to her fully. And you are very frightened for a woman who called this protection. Caedron's gaze moved between them, but he did not interrupt. Yara raised her bleeding wrist over the open ledger. Storm teeth. Pressure only. Bite the muzzle, not the name. The 12 crescents dropped. One by one, they struck the blue closed-mouth marks beside the rival names. Each bite flashed storm white. Each mark cracked without tearing the ink beneath. Outside the passage, the black rain lost its hooks and recoiled upward. Hope moved through the terrace, too soon. At the bottom of the final page, beneath the last Ostholm name, a hidden line of storm script surfaced, where no guest entry should have been. Yara read it, and felt the cold move through her bones. Caedron saw her face. What? She turned the ledger so he could see. The final line burned blue-black under the oracle seal. Rival names held inside. Oracle seating ledger after evacuation. Beyond the East Passage, the evacuated families began to scream, not because the black rain had reached them, because it had turned in the sky. The storm mouth above the torn wedding blue shifted away from the emptied guest rows and bent toward the passage where the rival houses had fled. Its rain did not fall straight down. It stretched, thin and searching, like a tongue tasting the path their bodies had taken. Yara Flint slammed the oracle's seating ledger shut. The black rain recoiled. Only a little, enough to prove the book was still holding them. Caedron Varric saw it. They left the terrace. Their bodies did, Yara said. Their names did not. Mirith Orlane lifted her chin. A royal wedding ledger must preserve attendance. Without witness names, no alliance can be proven. Yara looked at the pearl-scaled cover beneath her bloody hand. You keep calling traps by clean names. The storm teeth circled above the ledger, clicking in short, angry bursts. They did not bite yet. The book was sealed too tightly, and the pressure around it was layered. Oracle ink, crown fire residue, vow line ash, and the blue closed-mouth marks beside every rival name. A beautiful cage for handwriting. Caedron stepped closer. Can you free them? Yara did not look at him. Do not make that sound simple. It was not meant to. Good. Mirith's smile returned in a thin line. She cannot. Danger. Readers may identify pressure. They cannot alter royal witness records. Yara opened the ledger again. The pages fluttered, though there was no wind. Renach, Ver, Ostholm. Every name already half darkened, not crossed out, not dead, but held under the oracle seal like insects beneath amber. At the bottom of each page lay the same blue mark, a closed mouth. Yara understood then why the Stormteeth had gone silent before first bell. The sky had not only been sealed, the names had been sealed with it. The ledger is still speaking them inside the vow line, she said. Caedron's face hardened. Even after evacuation? Yes, a mother's voice broke from beyond the passage. My daughter is outside. Why is the rain following her? Yara answered without turning. Because the book still says she is here. The terror that moved through the terrace was quieter this time, deeper. People feared storms, but they feared records more when records could kill. Caedron looked at Merith. Release the names. Merith bowed her head. Only the Oracle office can close a wedding ledger after the vow. The vow is renounced, not completed, not properly dissolved. Yara laughed once, cold and tired. There it is. You built a slaughter that only your office can politely finish. Merith's eyes flashed. I built continuity. You built ownership. Caedron reached for the ledger. Yara caught his wrist. Before his fingers touched the page, every guard moved. Caedron raised his free hand, stopping them. Yara released him first. Your fire is already in the seal. If you touch the names with crown fire, the ledger may take your witness as completion. His eyes held hers. For the first time, he did not ask whether she was certain. He only withdrew his hand. That was not forgiveness, but it was learning. Yara turned to the Stormteeth. Not the names, she whispered. The mouths. The teeth dropped. One crescent shard struck the first closed mouth mark beside a Renach child's name. Blue-white light burst across the page. The mark split open. The ink beneath remained whole. Outside the passage, the black rain lifted away from the child's path. A sob of relief broke from the far stair. Yara moved faster. Renach children, Ver elders, Ostholm wounded. Each blue mark cracked under a storm-tooth bite. Each name stayed written, but the pressure holding it inside the vow line loosened. Merith's composure fractured. Stop. Those records are royal property. Yara did not pause. No living name is storm property. Caedron turned to the remaining guards. Hold the oracle. Merith stepped back before they reached her. Then she raised 2 fingers to the rain-pearl crown on her head. Yara saw the pearls darken. Down, she shouted. Merith crushed one pearl between her fingers. A pulse of blue light snapped from her crown into the ledger. The freed marks began closing again, one by one, little mouths sealing over names Yara had just released. The black rain bent toward the passage a second time. Caedron seized Merith's wrist and twisted her hand away from the crown. Enough. Merith's voice shook with fury. If the names scatter without oracle closure, the dead fire will have no boundary. Yara pressed her bleeding wrist flat against the open ledger. Pain shot up her arm as the vow line tried to pull her name into the pages. The Stormteeth froze. For one terrible heartbeat, Yara felt the book search for her. Yara Flint. Stormmouth. Monster reader. Unseated warning. She gritted her teeth. You want a boundary? The ledger trembled beneath her palm. Use the lie that made one. The Stormteeth turned as one, not toward the rival names, but toward Merith's oracle seal at the bottom of the final page. Merith went pale. Do not touch that seal. Yara looked up at her. A clean sky requires clean silence. You taught them where silence lives. The 12 teeth struck the oracle seal. The pearl-scaled ledger cracked from spine to clasp, and storm script burned through the final page. Oracle seal-bound evacuated names inside the vow line. The ledger split like a shell beneath Yara's bleeding hand. Pearl-scaled covers curled away from the spine. Pages loosened in a rush, not flying loose, but breathing open, each rival name trembling as the storm teeth tore the closed-mouth marks from the ink. Beyond the East Passage, the black rain lifted from the fleeing families and recoiled toward the torn wedding sky. A woman sobbed. A child began crying again, this time with sound. Yara kept her palm flat on the broken ledger until the last released name stopped shaking. Pain ran up her arm in cold silver lines. The Oracle seal had tried to taste her too, tried to pull Yara Flint into its guest columns and trap her as another named thing inside a vow she had never entered. It failed. Barely. Caedron Varric saw the blood darken under her hand. Step back. Yara did not move. Do not give me orders because the proof hurt me. His mouth closed. Good. The terrace was half empty now. Rival houses had crossed the East Passage, but mourn. Nobles, guards, acolytes, and broken ceremony remained under the torn sky. The false blue hung in strips. Behind it, black rain rolled and gathered, no longer certain where to feed. Mirith Orlane stood near the bride arch with Caedron's hand, still locked around her wrist. She had stopped looking composed, but she had not stopped calculating. The names are loose now, Caedron said. Why has the storm not risen? Yara looked up. The answer hung above Mirith's head, her rain pearl crown. 12 pearls circled the silver frame. One had already been crushed. The remaining pearls shone with faint blue cores, each one pulsing in rhythm with the torn ledger. Yara's stomach tightened. The ledger was not the source. Mirith's eyes flashed. Caedron followed Yara's gaze. The crown? Not decoration, Yara said. A living oracle seal. Mirith lifted her chin. The storm crown holds weather authority office. Without it, no one can govern the release. Govern, Yara repeated. You mean keep ownership. The crown prevents chaos. The crown kept evacuated names tied to the vow line. Mirith's voice sharpened. Because the dead fire must have a boundary. Yara finally lifted her bloodied hand from the ledger. Then give it one that is not made of children. The storm teeth descended toward the crown. Mirith flinched for the first time. Not much. Enough. The acolytes moved to block Yara. Caedron's voice cut through them. Stand aside. One acolyte bowed but did not move. Your Majesty, Oracle regalia cannot be touched by non-office hands. Caedron looked at the torn sky, the opened passage, the broken ledger, the terrified guests beyond the terrace, and the woman who had warned him before first bell. Then he looked at the acolyte. Your office used my fire without my command. The acolyte lowered his eyes and stepped back. Mirith's wrist twisted in Caedron's grip. If you strip my authority now, the release will become wild. Yara held up one of the cracked silver omen rings. Wild storms fall everywhere. This storm keeps reaching for records. That is not wild. That is trained. Caedron's eyes burned. Can the crown be opened without killing the terrace? Yara studied the pulse inside the pearls. The storm teeth clicked softly. Not enough to answer for her. Enough to show where pressure gathered. One pearl for each held layer, she said. Sky veil, guest weight, vow, line, royal fire, rival names, ledger mouths, evacuation binding. Caedron's jaw tightened. And the others? Yara looked at Mirith. We find out carefully. Mirith smiled, brittle and cold. You would let a monster reader dismantle centuries of oracle lore pearl by pearl? Yara stepped closer. No. I would let the court watch what oracle lore became in your hands. That struck harder than rage. Caedron released Mirith's wrist only long enough to take the crown from her head himself. The terrace gasped. Mirith went white. Without the crown, she looked smaller. Not powerless, never that, but separated from the weather she had taught everyone to fear through her. The black rain shifted uneasily overhead. Yara laid the crown on the cracked wedding stone. The storm teeth formed a circle above it. Not the pearls, she whispered. The bindings. The first tooth bit the air over the crushed pearl. A blue thread snapped. The false sun dimmed. The second tooth bit over the next pearl. The gold chains on the lower stairs fell open fully. The third. The vow line flickered and thinned. The fourth. Caedron staggered as a strand of dark red fire rushed back into his chest. He caught himself on the bride arch, breathing hard, but he did not stop her. The fifth. Beyond the passage, rival house names stopped glowing on torn sashes and discarded crests. The sixth. The broken ledger went still. The storm mouth above the terrace pulled upward, confused and hungry, no longer fed by the guests. Hope moved through the survivors like fragile heat. Mirith saw it and struck. She drove a hidden glass needle into the seventh pearl. The crown screamed. A column of black rain dropped straight toward the center of the terrace, not toward a guest, not toward a housemark, toward Yara. Caedron lunged, but Yara raised her bleeding wrist before he reached her. No. The word stopped him more sharply than a blade. The storm teeth flew between Yara and the falling rain. This time they did not bite pressure, they bit command. The black column split around her, tearing into two streams that carved burning trenches through the wedding mosaic. At the bottom of the crown, under the seventh pearl, a hidden inscription flared. Yara read it through the stormlight. Then she looked at Caedron, and something like fury steadied her voice. Mirith did not only hold authority, she said. She named herself Release Witness. The inscription burned brighter, visible to every remaining noble on the terrace. Storm Release, bound to Oracle Crown, until Mirith Orlan speaks final command. Mirith Orlan smiled with black rain shining on her lashes. Not a wide smile, not madness, a small, precise expression, the kind used by someone who had lost the room but still held the key to the door. The crown lay cracked on the wedding stone between her and Yara Flint. 6 pearls had gone dim. The 7th bled dark stormlight through the glass needle Mirith had driven into it. Above the terrace, the black rain twisted in 2 broken columns, held apart only by the storm teeth circling Yara's bleeding wrist. Caedron Varric stood near the bride arch, breathing as if every return of stolen fire had brought a blade back through his ribs. The dark red flame at his throat no longer looked sick. It looked wounded and angry. "Speak the command," he said. Mirith's eyes moved to him. "Restore my office authority." No one breathed. Yara looked at the sky. The storm mouth had lost its guest names, lost the ledger, lost the crests, lost the first 6 bindings. Now it waited for the one thing Mirith had kept for herself. Release. Caedron's voice stayed low. "You used my fire, trapped my guests, marked rival houses, and bound the storm to your crown. I preserved a kingdom from political collapse. You built a slaughter into my wedding." "I built leverage," Mirith said, and there it was. Not confession in shame, confession dressed as statecraft. Every rival house came prepared to bargain against your throne. Had they left under debt to the storm, they would have bowed for a generation. A furious sound rose from the passage beyond the terrace. Yara did not turn. They would have buried children. Mirith's gaze snapped to her. "You speak like survival is clean." "No," Yara said. "I speak like warning matters before death, not after it becomes useful." The storm teeth clicked hard. The 7th pearl pulsed. Caedron stepped toward Mirith. "Final command. Now." Mirith lifted her chin. "Only the recognized storm oracle may release royal weather. Strip me, and the storm remains hungry. Kill me, and the command dies sealed in the crown, a Morn Lord whispered. Then restore her. For the release, Yara turned on him. That is how cages survive. Someone always says, just this once. Hand the key back. Caedron looked at her. Can the command be taken? Not taken. Merith's smile sharpened. Yara looked down at the crown. Redirected. The smile faltered. The storm teeth dipped lower, drawn not to the pearl itself, but to the needle inside it. Glass, silver, and storm-black veins twisted through the puncture. The final command was not stored in Merith's mouth. That was the trick. Her voice would only wake what she had already buried. The command is in the wound, Yara said. Caedron followed her gaze. The needle. Merith moved. Caedron caught her before she reached the crown, but the effort bent him forward. His stolen fire was still tangled in the ruined seal. He could restrain her body, not the storm. Yara crouched before the crown. The seventh pearl trembled under her shadow. The storm teeth hovered behind her shoulder, 12 crescent jaws, waiting for pressure, not permission. If I pull the needle, she said. The command opens wild. Caedron's grip tightened around Merith's arm. And if you leave it, the storm waits until she speaks. Merith whispered, Wise girl. Yara looked up at her. Do not mistake caution for obedience. Then she turned her bleeding wrist over the crown. Blood fell onto the stone. The storm teeth snapped at the scent, then stopped. They knew her blood. They had rested against her skin for years, while others called them monstrous. They would not mistake Rita for offering. Yara pressed 2 fingers to the 7th pearl. Cold shot through her hand. For one instant, she saw nothing with her eyes. Pressure opened under her skin. False sun, sealed sky, guest rose, royal fire, rival names, ledger mouths, oracle crown, release command. All of it knotted around one principle. A final command did not have to be spoken by the one who bound it. It had to be spoken by the authority the storm recognized. Merith had made herself release witness, but the storm teeth had bitten every lie open. The storm had been listening to them longer than it had listened to her. Yara inhaled slowly. I can give it a mouth. Merith went pale. No. Caedron looked at Yara. What does that cost? She almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because he had finally learned to ask before taking. My teeth may not survive it. The words landed quietly. Caedron's face changed. Yara, no, she said. Do not put softness where command belongs. He closed his mouth. Yara lifted the cracked silver omen rings from the stone, one by one. The same rings Merith had used to muzzle the teeth. The same rings Caedron had ordered, placed around them. She threaded them together with the black iron cord torn from her wrist. A new circle formed in her hands. Not a leash, not a muzzle, but a mouth of broken law. Merith struggled against Caedron. If she speaks through them, the danger, Rita becomes storm authority. Yara's eyes stayed on the crown. No. The warning becomes release. She set the ring circle over the 7th pearl. The storm teeth flew into place around it. One by one, they bit the cracked rings not to break them, but to turn them outward. Every muzzle became a jaw facing the sky. The black rain recoiled. Yara spoke clearly. Release pressure upward. No guest name. No house debt. No crown witness. No oracle ownership. The 7th pearl split. The glass needle rose from it by itself, trembling like a black thorn. For one heartbeat, the storm obeyed. Then Merith screamed one word in the old oracle tongue. The thorn shattered. The release command broke into 12 black sparks and shot upward toward the waiting rain. Yara's eyes widened. She split it. The storm mouth opened wider than it had all day. Above the terrace, 12 separate black currents formed, each one searching for a different path down. The storm teeth rose after them. Caedron released Mirith and caught the broken collar from the ground, dark fire flaring in his fist. Yara looked at him once, not forgiving, not asking, choosing the only dangerous truth left. "Give me your fire," she said. The 12 currents began to fall. Caedron placed the broken dragon gold collar into Yara's hands. It was hotter than pain. The stolen royal fire inside it surged against her palms, not obeying her, not welcoming her, only recognizing that the seal around it had been torn open and the sky was falling in 12 directions at once. Yara did not close her fingers around the gold. She held it flat, like a dangerous animal that had been caged too long. "Do not push," she said. Caedron's face was pale beneath the stormlight. "If I do nothing, it falls. If you push, it feeds the old seal. Give me fire without command." His jaw tightened. "That is not how kings are taught to give." "Then stop being taught for one breath." Above them, the 12 black currents dropped lower. One curved toward the east passage, one toward the broken bride arch, one toward the empty rival rose, where names had been stripped from cloth but still remembered by stone. The storm teeth flew after them, bright and ragged, each crescent jaw snapping at pressure too large for any tool to hold alone. Merith Orlane laughed through blood at the corner of her mouth. "He cannot. Dragon fire rules. It does not surrender." Yara looked at Caedron. Is she right? The question struck harder than accusation. For a moment, he looked not at the storm, not at the court, but at the broken collar in her hands, the thing that had been used in his name before he spoke, the thing that had turned his crown into a lock around living guests. Then he opened his bleeding hand above the gold. Dark red fire fell from his palm, not in a stream, in drops, on a beon. Each drop landed on the broken collar without command, without royal shape, without vow. The storm teeth turned midair. Yara lifted the collar and spoke to them, not loudly, because pressure heard better than panic. Bite upward. The teeth struck the falling currents. This time they did not cut the storm apart. They caught Caedron's commandless fire between their jaws and carried it into the black rain like sparks into a grave. One current twisted upward, then another, then 3 more. The dead fire fought, searching for names, crowns, vows, anything it had been promised. It found none. Yara's arms shook. The collar split deeper in her hands. Caedron stepped forward, but she snapped. "No." He stopped. "Good. Let him learn restraint in public." The final current plunged toward the wedding dais, where Merith's cracked crown still bled blue light from the 7th pearl. Merith lunged for it. A guard caught her too late. Her fingers brushed the crown. The black current answered her, not as queen, not as oracle, as owner of the lie. It wrapped around her hand and began climbing her arm, burning glass silk to ash without flame. Mirith screamed not from death, but from the storm finally recognizing the command she had hidden inside herself. Yara turned the storm teeth toward her. Caedron's voice cut in. "Will it kill her if I let it finish?" "Do not." Yara looked at him sharply. He held her gaze. "Not mercy. Witness. She answers better alive." "That?" Yara accepted. She raised her bleeding wrist. "Bite the command. Leave the flesh." The storm teeth dove. 12 crescents struck the black current around Merith's arm and tore away the final command thread. The oracle collapsed to the stone, alive, shaking. Her rain pearl crown split open beside her like a dead shell. The storm above the terrace convulsed. Then it rose, not vanished, not cleansed, released. Black rain poured upward through the torn blue sky, carrying dead fire into the true storm above Stormbreak Keep. The false sun peeled apart like wet paint. Golden weather collapsed in strips. Real wind struck the terrace at last, cold, violent, honest. Guests beyond the passage fell to their knees. Morn nobles clutched at broken tables. Caedron remained standing. So did Yara. The storm teeth descended slowly. Their silver omen rings were gone. Several crescents were cracked. One had lost half its edge. They circled Yara's wrist once, then settled on the wedding stone before her, no longer muzzled, no longer clean, still sharp. The terrace had no beautiful sky now, only truth. Caedron turned to the remaining court. His voice carried over wind and ruined ceremony. Storm Oracle, Merith Orlane is stripped of royal weather authority. Her crown, ledgers, omen rings, and veil records will be sealed under dragon witness. From this day, no wedding sky, crown omen, or storm veil may be declared clean until a danger reader has read pressure outside oracle command. Merith lifted her head weakly. You give law to monsters. Yara looked down at her. No. He gives warning back to the people you tried to silence. Caedron faced Yara then. Not before the court as a savior. Before her as the man who had failed first. I muzzled the only warning that tried to save my court. The words were plain. Not enough, but plain was better than royal poetry. Yara picked up the nearest storm tooth. Its edge was warm from biting death away from strangers who had feared her. Do not make reverence out of what you feared 5 minutes ago, she said. Pain crossed his face. He accepted it. I will not, and do not call me blessed. No, or chosen. No. She looked at the shattered wedding arch, the evacuated guests, the broken oracle crown, and the sky that no longer pretended innocence. I read danger, Yara said. That is all. Caedron's eyes held hers, dark fire steadying at last inside them. Then stand where danger is read, not below the vow line, not behind the oracle, beside the law. Yara did not answer quickly. The court waited for a softened look, a romantic surrender, a neat ending that would make the monstrous girl beautiful because a dragon king had finally seen use in her. She gave them none of that. She tied the storm teeth back to the black iron cord with one hand, blood and rain running down her wrist. Then she stepped past the broken vow line, not toward Caedron's hand, not toward the bride arch, but toward the edge of the terrace where the true storm could be seen without ornament. Caedron followed only far enough to stand beside her, not touching, not claiming. Above them, the sky was no longer clean. It was true.